and welcome to another episode of Issues and Insights. I'm Bryce Shoemate from Hardin County Government, and today we try to keep you informed on what's going on all throughout our county. And this year, we've played on more of what is going on each month as far as what special thing is going on each month. And April is Autism Awareness Month. And so one of the things that we strive to do to keep you all informed is that we talk to specialists in those fields. And today, we've got two of my great friends with me who are truly, I consider, specialists in their field as far as autism is concerned. And I've got Stephanie Burrows-Thomas with us. Stephanie, always great to have you.
Thank
I know
you.
that you are a positive behavioral support specialist.
Yes.
That's a mouthful for
Yes,
me.
it is.
And I know you contract out to different places. And this guy we've watched grow up, both
Yes.
of us. Sergeant James Lark from Radcliffe Police Department, and James has developed a program with help from another officer here at Radcliffe Police Department to make sure that if someone with autism gets lost, that you all have the tools to be able to help find that child or person. So
Correct.
Great to have you all with us. And I really, Stephanie, with your son that we've grown up with,
Right.
you know, all three of us here, I want to talk to you basically so that you can explain to the folks that are watching our show today, give us a general definition of what autism truly is.
Autism is a developmental disability, and it's a spectrum disability, so you have very high functioning people and then to more severe. It always affects the communication, social skills, sensory processing. So a individual may be sensitive to light, oversensitive to light, but undersensitive to sound. And you can have a mixture. So it really makes it difficult to work with them because they're all so different.
And they're very bright.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
You know, I think some people have a misconception that because they have this, is disorder a proper word to say, or how would you say it?
Disorder, autism spectrum disorder.
It doesn't mean that they are not bright individuals
No.
because they are very bright.
Right.
And so that misconception, I think, is unfair to anybody that has autism.
It is, it most definitely. Their brains are wired, the wires are connected like ours, but they're just wired differently. So the way their perception of things and the way they take things in through their five senses as we do are totally different. So that makes it very difficult.
And some of those, if I understand right, maybe even be hypersensitive, more so
Sure.
than other people, correct?
Yes, yes, most definitely.
And it could be anything from hearing to taste to feel.
Right, yes, most
It
definitely.
could be any of those. And I know my iPad just turned off here, so I've got my questions on there that you had. What are some of the most common characteristics that you see?
You do, like I said, it's a spectrum. So you have some that are verbal, some with limited speech communication, and some nonverbal. My son's nonverbal, but they have a hard time relating to others. They don't always read emotions, initiation, the turn taking and talking. People who are verbal often have restricted interests, like a child may be interested in dinosaurs. So that's all they can communicate with you about. And even as adults, Einstein was considered as being on the spectrum, Andy Warhol, Bill Gates. So, you know, and Bill Gates we know is just a tech geek. So I'm sure that's what he talks mostly about. So it can make it difficult just in the way they relate with others and reading emotions. Sometimes they may laugh at something sad, and it's just beyond their control.
And I know they feel more comfortable with some people than others.
Most definitely. I think they have a sixth sense of people who accept them and can relate with them. Most
Right.
definitely.
And I know that because of growing up with your son, that knowing who he felt comfortable with would be the people that he would actually, in his way of communicating, would communicate with or even want to be around.
Right, most definitely. I could always tell when he had a good teacher because he would go and touch her hand and acknowledge her. And even people who come and visit, maybe you've only met once or twice, he'll come up and look him in the eye and smile. So that makes me feel more comfortable because some he just won't even give you any attention.
Absolutely. And I know, you know, you said there are some areas that individuals with autism might have difficulty with, and you just talked about a little bit. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, communication. They may not know go up to initiate to ask for something. It may be just them looking at you, so if you don't have that awareness, they don't always understand body language from people. They kind of get in their own little zone and will block out others. So that they may not be aware of what's going on if they're in a dangerous situation or even attending in school.
And I want to key in on that dangerous situation. We were all talking off camera before we started, and we talked about people with autism. I heard you and another police officer that's in the room with us talking about having alarms on your doors.
Yes.
So that you would know if your young person got out of the house.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, with my son, he liked the sound of lawnmowers, or he just decided he's going to go visit neighbors. So if I didn't hear him go out, then he could wander off. Things will get their attention, or they may get, something, well, I'm going to go see so-and-so who, because they have an unbelievable memory. So Jay would sometimes take off and go to see his grandmother who lives about a mile away. And then they could get diverted if there was a pond, not aware of traffic. So it makes it a dangerous situation for their safety.
So, James, that's where a lot of times, unfortunately, you all come in. I say unfortunately because that means a lot of times if they see us, that means something is going wrong that we have to come in and start helping to locate if they have walked out.
Correct. And, Ms. Thomas and I were talking earlier today, and at least 50% go elope at some point in their life. And so that's why it's important, especially for law enforcement, to be versed in some of the characteristics of law enforcement so we know where to begin our search. And we're in close proximity to the house and how we are going to help try to bring that individual back home and safely and quickly as possible.
And I know that both of you all talked about when we were discussing this earlier that there is an attraction to a water feature or water. Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know that it's ever been determined why, but it's the stats that I've got is 68% of those that go missing end up somewhere near water. And unfortunately, 16% of those are lethal, and 91% of those lethal, of that 16% that's lethal, is because of drowning.
Right.
So I think, at least locally, water is one of the most important things that we have to get to immediately once we are notified that one of our citizens has gone missing.
So knowing all this information, what has Radcliffe Police Department done to actually train your officers and to work with this?
I brought law enforcement training up to our administration about a year ago. And we've got a great administration who was immediately on board and said, go get trained. Figure out what we need to do as a department to better serve our community and our citizens with autism in our community. And in just within the last year, they have sent me to Lexington to get specialized in missing and elopement training for individuals with autism. I've been down to Nashville with the Tennessee Autism Society to get trained in interaction, and they had a huge block on missing and elopement. Officer Burns, which is the other officer who's helped us work through this, him and I just got back from some training through Louisville Metro Police Department, who was trained through the University of Louisville Autism Education Department. And coincidentally, next week, Officer Burns and I will be at the Department of Criminal Justice training for some more training for law enforcement interaction with special needs to include autism. So I think it's a really good move for this community. The state has taken it seriously and is providing more training towards law enforcement, and not only interaction, but specializing in missing and elopement and location of individuals with autism.
Well, and I know as our area grows, that means that we have more chances of this happening because we have more people in. And Stephanie, one of the things that you had talked about to me earlier was with going it actually makes a great segue on what James was just talking about, but what precautions should be taken for those with autism?
Well, you just can't go up and start talking to someone with autism. They may not respond to you, or they may react violently, But because they don't understand, sometimes you get behaviors that may look like, that are inappropriate behaviors, but actually they're not. They may not understand a situation or be in fear, and it's a fight or flight type thing. So how people respond is definitely going to make a difference. So you need to remain calm and look for cues. And me as a parent and working with kids, I try to look at what could cause the behavior, because behavior is not, it's caused from lack of understanding or lack to communicate wants and needs. And a lot of people don't get that.
And James, I think that makes a great entry into saying, what have you all taught your officers to do as far as this?
Well, one of the biggest steps that we've taken place, and it's a saying that's all through the autism community, is if you met one person with autism, congratulations,
Yeah.
you met one person with autism. Because they're individuals. All their characteristics
Just like
are
us,
different. It
like
is.
everybody.
So the biggest step that we at the Radcliffe Police Department have initiated is our new Autism Awareness registration. That's where a family member comes in, picks up one of our packets. It has all of their loved one's information on it, enough information that we can immediately do a missing persons report for that individual. And we're not interacting with the parent who is obviously distraught, upset, their child's missing, but it also goes into that individual's characteristics. That packet includes whether they're verbal or nonverbal, whether they have been known to be aggressive or non-aggressive, whether they respond to loud sounds or not. So it really digs in deep to that individual's characteristics.
And you know what, James, that is great information for us to get out to our viewers on this show. How does somebody, how are they able to pick up this packet?
At this point in time, if you live in Radcliffe or Vine Grove, we use the same single dispatch. You can come into the Radcliffe Police Department, ask for an Autism Awareness registration form. An officer will bring that up to you and explain it to you. You'll turn it back into our records. That is, that information is immediately put into our record system as well as our dispatch. And also, we have met with the Elizabethtown Police Department, who has adopted their version of this form, and as I understand it, it's immediately available in Elizabethtown as well, under the same guidelines.
So if somebody, and we can put this number at the bottom of the screen so that our folks watching this show will be able to pick up on this, but what would be a phone number that folks could call if they're watching this show right now? What would be a number that folks could call to get information and maybe some ideas on where you may be located and how to get here? And
the number to the Radcliffe Police Department is 270-351-4477. That's a 24-hour number. It's monitored 24 hours a day. So if you're on a third shift schedule and you have 2 o'clock in the morning is the time that you can call, we have officers available that can provide that package for you.
And Sergeant, is there an email address that maybe folks could get a hold of you as well about this?
Yes, they can contact me at any time at radcliffepdjlark, that's L-A-R-K, at gmail.com.
And folks, we'll put that at the bottom of the screen too, so that you all are able to pick up on both the phone number where you can get information and an email address where you can get a hold of Sergeant Lark to ask about this packet and get information. And of course, if you all want to talk to Elizabethtown Police Department, if you're watching this show, 270-765-4125 puts you into their dispatch, and we'll put that number at the bottom of the screen as well. I may be old, but I still remember phone numbers. You know, I guess it's all those years of being a police officer getting those numbers drilled into us. But
you know, one thing, Bryce, on this packet is for us, it has 3 benefits. One is, like I hit on earlier, the missing person. We have that information available. We're not trying to get it from the parent who has other priorities at that
Sure.
time. Secondly, because it is incorporated with our dispatch, a lot of times we'll get a 911 hang-up call with yelling in the background. If this is already registered in our system, the dispatch will notify responding officers that this is an autistic household. Because, you know, a lot of times I think when people think of autism, they think of young children, but these children grow up. And now when we respond, we have an officer mindset of thinking they're going to a domestic with yelling, and now you've got a 19-year-old male that reaches for your shiny badge when you get there. I think the mindset of the officers, if they know going into this household, it'll help with their reaction.
yeah, they know what to expect.
It is.
Right.
And then the third aspect of this, which just came up a couple of weeks ago, we had a parent whose daughter was going to begin driving. And she said, you know, one of my concerns is I don't know how my daughter is going to react with her autism if she gets pulled over. So she asked if she could come in and have us do a mock traffic stop with her daughter and go through that. And we were able to give her this packet. And now when her daughter's name is run, if she's on a traffic stop, dispatch will be able to advise that officer that the operator of that vehicle is autistic. And then he can make little changes, whether it's taking the forward-facing blue strobe lights and just turning on the rear lights so that they're not shining directly on that operator. It's little steps like that that'll make a difference for our community.
That is absolutely
Yes.
awesome. And, you know, it makes a great, I keep saying a segue, but we're rolling right into each other and didn't even know it. Stephanie, you sent me some ideas on some questions to ask. Do all people that are autistic have behavioral issues?
In some ways, yes, they do. They will respond differently. I have worked with children as young as 2, 3 years old up to 20-some, and they're all so different in how. And you will see some behavioral issues, but again, it's out of them not understanding the information that they're taking in. So you don't always, you know, it may be aggression, but it's just their confusion, and that's the only way they know to convey that.
But we would have the possibility that they wouldn't have a behavioral issue.
Right,
right?
right. I'm blessed that my son doesn't have behavior issues. He's very laid back and easygoing, but they're all different. You can't compare one to the other. Like James said, he took my quote. So, but yeah.
I mean, and you know, I'm sitting here proud, a proud papa listening to you, James, as you go through these things, because